All right, so this is one of those problems that's kind of hard to solve. Not because it's particularly difficult to do, I don't think, but more so because you've got to keep a lot of different bits and pieces of information in your head all at the same time. Um, I have seen how these videos look, and realistically, like that's a better text size for the video, but for this one, I'm going to have to just have it there. That's where I'd normally have it, but we'll put it there because I want it to be consumable for you. But when it's bigger than this, it's really difficult to be effective. So this is the size we're going to run with. The pretext to this is really the OAuth video, which ran through how you get OAuth. So what I've done, I've made a couple of changes to that since the video, I think. So basically, click the button, go to today's plan, hit yes, come back to Cycling Connect. React checks the query string for code, which is the code from today's plan, sends it up to the server, and then it runs through this, which abstracts all of the actual workflow away from the controller, and it's a bit cleaner now. So let me just quickly run through that. So the first thing we do is we run this. So it's the penultimate, which is a fancy way of saying second last step in authorizing with today's plan. So we take in the auth code. We also take in the claims user. So we get the user out of the database. Well, actually, in this case, we're getting it from user manager, which is just another layer on the top. We assemble the request, telling it where to go and what method to use, content type, the code, client ID and secret, the grant type, and the redirect URI, because all of these are actually checked on today's plan. And if any one of those is either incorrect or missing, it'll fail. Then we read the response by calling client execute task async. And something I don't think I really touched on it was this here. So that is probably going to look familiar-ish. So anywhere you've got a project to, right? In this case, we're projecting writer age categories from the database to the writer age category DTO type. And, excuse me, it's just, I guess you could loosely call this generic programming in C#, where you see angle brackets at least. So that's where you tell it the type and it figures out the rest. So that's what we do in here. Because that's going to spit back a whole lot of JSON, and I don't want to deal with transforming a string into actual data that's easy to use. So instead, I've created a class called auth tokens, and I'll just peek definition because that's easier. So we've got public class auth tokens, data member name equals access token, and then that's actually what it's called. So when it comes back from the server from today's plan, it's labeled as access token, and that's great if that fits in with whatever programming language that you're using, but it doesn't for us. And that's why I've declared that. So when it actually goes through this method and it tries to map the response to auth tokens, it knows to put access token into this variable. So that's what that does. So then if the response is successful, we first save the token. And so what we do is we look in the database, we go, is there any record for this particular Cycling Connect user? If it's not there, we create it. Otherwise, we update it and then we save. And then we run one more method, which is get user ID async. This could probably be named a little bit better, but here we are. I probably need to rename it. And so the reason for that, right, is for a lot of requests that go to today's plan, and I'll show you this one here, peak watts per kilogram async. No, that's a bad example. This one, peak power data async. We need to send it parameters. And so one of those parameters is the user ID, and this is the today's plan user ID. So for some requests, you only need to give it authorization and then bearer access token. much like what we do when we send requests from React and Redux through to the .NET side. We actually just grab the user ID on the server. But for today's plan, all of the requests that we're interested in, all of the endpoints, we actually have to provide the user ID. And there isn't, as far as I'm aware, a way to get that data directly. So what we need to do is we need to send off a dummy request to the server to an endpoint that I have found that returns that data. So let me show you what that looks like. So that's in get user ID async, which is just here. So we grab the user's token out of the database, their today's plan access token. We create a request which goes to whatever the hell that is. Let's see, where does it go? Settings.search. So if I look in my app settings, we've got settings, today's plan, search. So this goes to rest files search. 0, which is the offset number. So that's how many you want to, that's skip. Think of it like skip. And that's it. I can't remember what that is, but that's the equivalent of take. So we say we want to skip 0 and we only want one result, and it's a post method. So I've got this here, user workout file search. So we have the from, which is January 1st, 2014. And then we have the to. And so what I've got is I've got date time offset, which is just a basic date time, .now. So that's whatever the present time is in universal time. And then I convert it to Unix time in milliseconds. So to show you how that would work in JavaScript, I'm getting a phone call, const equals new date. And if I hit D, that's what we get. So we get something similar to that in C# if you go new date time or datetime.now or datetime offset.now. So what I'll do is I'll go D.to something, I can't remember what it is. Get milliseconds, I think. No. I can't remember how to get this. Well, anyway, look, long story short, when you use dates in JavaScript, it's got milliseconds. And maybe that's it. No. Get minutes, month. No. Two. That's not it. Anyway, I can't remember, but it's basically the same time format as JavaScript, and where it uses milliseconds, everything else uses something else that I can't remember. I think most other things only use seconds. And so fortunately we've got this utility method to Unix time milliseconds. So anyway, we send off to file search. We want to skip 0, take just 1, it's a post request. From Jan 1st, 2014 to whatever the date is now, we don't give a shit. We add the header, the bearer, auth token, and then we add those junk parameters and we execute it. And we want to transform that to a workout file result. So what I've done in here is not advisable by any measure. We've got the public int count. We've got public list results. And what's a file result? Well, it's got a user. And what does a user have? It's got these. So I mean, realistically, actually, I don't need count and I don't need first name and last name. But I just put them in there because I did. I don't have a really good explanation. So when that returns, if it's all good, then we'll have in result.data, we'll have a class or an object of that particular class. Hover over that, you can see. So data is that actual class, and then results is the member. And so if there's at least one result, we know we're in business. So what we do is we grab the token, and then, well, we actually get the entire record out of the database in this case, of the user's today's plan record. And then we set their user ID. So we just grab the results, which is a list. We grab the first item, we grab user, and then we grab the ID property. And then we just save changes async. And that's done. So that's what happens when they come back to Cycling Connect. All that happens behind the scenes in about like a split second. So let me show you today's plan. So this is how it looks. It's obviously not as good with the dev console open. Actually, it's not even that pretty anyway, but you've got a shitload of data in here. And what we're really interested in, if I can fucking scroll correctly, we're interested in these two graphs. So peak power curve and peak watts per kilogram curve. Actually, they're not exactly what we're interested in, but that's what I'm starting with, and we'll figure out the rest from there. And I'll show you what those require. Oh God, I killed it. Let me just refresh the page. And we're using the network inspector clearly. I'm going to make that, can I make that bigger? Apparently not. That's annoying. So let's have a look at this. We've got max peaks. That's not the request we're interested in, but it is a request we're interested in. It's another one. Peak watts per kilogram. That's this one. You can see it goes to REST, reports, activity, peak watts a kilogram / get. If I look in the reference of the API and we go reports, peak, it's not really there. In fact, it's not there at all. So that's why I've got to go through this laborious process. So if we scroll down a bit, we can ignore most of all that. We know the URL that it's going to. We know it's a post request. Those are the two parts from above we want. This is the request payload. So this is the data sent to the server when we want to get the data from there. So we've got activities, empty array, all time, true, options 3. I have no idea what that means yet. Ranges is an array of objects. So we've got name 2015, because you can see up over here I'm in 2015. Floor and ceiling timestamps, I think they're just going to be the start and end of the year and the time zone. How do I get rid of it? Stop highlighting it, fuck. References, best ever, and this range last year, which if we scroll down, we've got best ever and this range last year, which is 2015. These are identical in this case. Team activities, nothing, type, ride, and then an array of user IDs. So we'll switch back to the C# now. And I've started on this, but it's not pretty yet. I don't know how it's going to work. So I've got this method, peak watts per kilogram async. And this takes in a parameter of user ID of string, which is the Cycling Connect user ID. So you know what? I would love to change it to the claims principal, but there's every likelihood that this is going to be requested by someone who isn't the writer looking at their own profile. So we need to think about a way to get around this effectively. You know what we can do? We can go today's plan service, and we can actually override the method. So we can go claims principal user. So it's going to be easier if we just work on that one first. So go public async. So we'll just presume it's the writer looking at their own data. And so what we need to do is, I'll go var cc user equals wait user manager dot get user async, passing the user object claims principal user. Now what we can do is we can go var tp details equals await get token and id async. We'll go cc user dot id, because that's what it takes in. And that returns a tuple, which we've sort of discussed. So we've got a string, which is the token, and an int, which is the today's plan user ID. We'll make a new request parameters object. So a new peak watts per kilogram request. I've created a constructor for this. So what we'll do is we'll go, what do we need? TP details dot user ID. Let's have a quick look at the peak watts per kilogram request class. You can see I've copied actually what the request includes. And so type's going to be ride, that's never going to change. All time is true, maybe that'll change, I have no idea. References, I'm just running with best ever. I don't know if I need to provide both or not. And then we've got the array for the user ID. So like these first three are constants, I don't need to touch them. Actually, that's not a const, but whatever. And so all I do in the constructor is I create a new array of integer, provide the user ID, and that's it. You could also use a list because when it gets sent off to the API, it gets converted to an array anyway. But I've used arrays for no good reason. So what we need to do now is get the request. And so so request, where did I go? Dot add header. I'm just going to copy and paste because it's easier. So we put in the auth token into the header, and then we go add JSON body. There are other ways to do this, but I've found that this is the easiest. And so I'll paste that shit in. Oh, I haven't created a request either. So yeah, we create the request telling it where to go, that it's post. What are the parameters, what's the object we need to attach to the request? So that's that there. And now, this is the hard part. We need to look at the data that comes back and figure out what we want. Where's the request going? Peak watts per kilogram, that'll do. Drag this up a bit. This is the response. It's pretty big. Actually, why am I looking at this? Because what I've done is peak watts per kilogram. So this is the request that gets sent, which we've discussed. This is the response. So we've got fields. We've got a results array and a keys array. So there's only three things coming back. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go here. I'm going to create another class. I'm going to go call it peak watts per kilogram response. Cool. Namespace cycling connect. Oh. .api.models. Today's plan. Whoop. Go public class. Call it that. And what does it have? It's got fields and it's got results. And it's got a user object, I guess, or something. Oh no, it's an array of an object of a type that we don't know. And this is all the data that we're interested in. Well, most of it. I'm not sure what data we want yet. I know we at least want this stuff, so I'm going to go to the first, I'm going to go Shift, Alt, click on the last, Shift, Alt, again, right arrow, copy. I'm going to go back to our class, I'm going to paste that bad boy in. Do the same multi-line cursor trick. I'm going to call it public. Fuck, what data is this? It's not. I don't even know what that is. It's a fucking float, I guess. Public float. I'm going to convert that to uppercase. That first character. Give it a get set. But this isn't actually that data, that's the problem. So this is results, So what I actually need another class. So I'm going to call this public class. And I wouldn't normally do it in the same file, but whatever. Peak what's result. And so we're not interested in the user part of it because we've already got that data. We're interested in this shit. So what I'll do is I'll cut and paste this into here. And so I'm not certain, but I'm pretty certain that when this data comes back, right, whether there's 1 result or 100 results, it's going to be in an array named results. So all I need to do in here is go public, using an I list. What was it called again? Results. And I'm pretty sure it's smart enough to match the names, but I'm going to give it a data member attribute as well, just to be safe. So I'll put that in there. So when we get it back, all we really want is that array of results, that list. So then back in the service, I go var response is equal to await client.execute task async with the type of that request, pass that in. Actually, what I'm going to do first, because I'm not even sure that this is going to work. So what I'm going to do is just punch a cheeky little breakpoint in there. I'm going to go to my today's plan service. I'm going to go async function peak watts per kg. We'll go await fetch const res equals await handle response td return res. The reason I'm doing this is because I need to make the server actually do it. Actually probably need a today's plan controller, so we'll go we'll call it peak watts per kg, and that's exported already. So what I need now is I need to go to write a profile controller, public async task action result. Format that a little bit, and we'll just go await tp service dot peak watts per kilogram async, pass in the user, and we're just going to return okay because we don't really care about that yet. We will in time, but not yet. So then back to Redux, we've got the service, we've got constants. Peak watts per kilogram, request, save that, cool. Today's plan dot actions, go peak watts per kg. Peak watts per kg. Peak watts per kg request. Is that correct? Yep. So I'm going to spin out the action. I'm not worried about the reducer yet because we're not actually getting anything useful back from the server yet. So what I'll do is I'll go to writerprofile.js. I've got TP search bound by map dispatch, so go peak watts per kg. Today's plan action dot peak watts per kg. So we're going to bind that using map dispatch, and then grab it out of props, and in use effect we're going to go peak watts per kilogram. We'll save that. So we've set up Redux and a controller that goes to the service to get that shit. So now I need to restart the server. Oh, I didn't need to stop that other one. So .NET run npm start. Will it work? Should do. And so I actually need to do a bit of debugging here just to see what's coming out. So we'll go back to today's plan service. I didn't save it. That's going to mean I've got to restart that shit again. Let me just check. So it's going to come in from the controller to peak watts per kilogram async. I'm pretty sure. Yep. We grab the user, we grab their today's plan data, fire up the request, I'll create the request and the parameters for it, token, parameters, response, and I've got a breakpoint here at the end of the function, because if I put a breakpoint there, it's before it's run, which is really no use to me at all. So actually I put it here while it's still technically within the function, and then I'll be able to inspect the response. So we'll run that. We're up. And I'm going to fire up the debugger, connect it to the correct DLL. And then all we need to do is view the writer profile to fire that off. All right, so it didn't work. What have we got? Message of nothing. We've got status code not found, which is a 404, which means I've got something wrong here somewhere. Son of a bitch. Let's look at the response URI. So it was staging, etc. REST reports activity peak watts a kilogram / get. So I'll go back to today's plan. REST reports activity peak WKG / get. And it says not found. All right, that's frustrating. Did I fuck it up in the request? It's the resource. What about the client? This .client. Staging, yep. .com.au / REST reports activity peak watts a kilogram get. So I've got to go check these. Peak watts a kilogram. Not found. All right, that's annoying. I have no idea why it didn't work, because that is not very useful information. Slash rest reports activity. Kilogram get. Yep. So everything there is correct as far as I can tell. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cancel the debug session. And I'm going to remove the parameters from the request. And there's a reason for this. The reason is that if I send a request that is not correctly formed, it should come back and actually tell me that, hey, you done goofed. Okay, all right, so we're back up and running. We'll fire up the debug session again. Cool. We'll go back, we'll go forwards, which will send it off again. I think it's probably just waiting. Yep. No, status code not found. Cannot consume, okay, cannot consume content type. Interesting. So that's how maybe a correct request. So that's really fucking frustrating. Let me go back to our peak watts per kilogram request class and look at the JSON for it. Let's get a bit generous here. We've got type, all time, references, that's lowercase. What's user IDs? Capital I, beauty. So we got best ever, which is what we wanted. Activities and team activities. I don't even know what these are meant to be an array of. So I can't put those in there for the moment because I don't know what they are, but we've got opt. So I'll go public const int opt equals 3 because we just want to make it identical so we can get some actual data out. We know we've got that there. It's missing a ranges object, which is troubling, but all the same, we've made it as close to that as we can. Save everything, run it again. All right, we're back up. We'll go away, start up debug sesh. It's up, we'll go forwards to retrigger that request. All right, we've got a response, cannot consume content type. Oh, it's because I removed the fucking parameters. Oh my God. Cool. So our first request with parameters didn't work. Our second request with no parameters didn't work, but we got a different error message, which is something. Now we're trying a third request. This one is with parameters, but like they're a bit more, well, they're way closer to what the actual request on today's plan is. So not found again. We didn't get shit. We didn't get shit. That's really annoying. So I know this other one works. All time false. So what about if we have a look back at this request? All time is true. Maybe I need to give it ranges. So activities all time options. Type activities. We've got activities all time options. Just moving it all into the same structure. Activities. Public. It's probably a string array. We'll just put it there and make sure it's initialized even though it's empty. So we've got activities, all time options, ranges, name, floor, ceiling, TZ. So we need another class for that. A public class ranges public string name. Floor TS. I'll just copy that. Yeah, it's easier. I think it's a long. So we'll go public ranges equals new ranges. References, team activities. Do we have that? Nope. Public string team activities, new string. So that's as close as I can get it. Name, floor, ceiling, time zone, type, all the rest. So can the debug, can the server. Restart. Redebug. Fire it off. Now let's see what we get back. Come on, baby. Not found. Oh my god. Aha. So that's different. Instance of array list out of start object token yada yada yada. VTeam multi-ride period ranges. Because it's an array. So if I punch it in there like that, because yeah, as that error message says, it can't deserialize an instance of array list. So array list is the same. It's like Java's version of list that .NET has. So we just need to fucking put it in that format. And then run it again. Oh my goodness. Actually, that hasn't loaded yet. Come on, darling. Attached to the debug sesh. My goodness. Now we wait. All right, we got not found again, which is frustrating. Not found? Why not? What couldn't you find? All right, so we'll can that. We'll go back to the request again. So we've got ranges in there now. We know that's fair and square. The only thing we haven't done is references. So at the moment we've got best ever. And we'll grab this range last year as well. Do what we always do. Oh my God, this is laborious. This is probably a lesson in how not to do it. Thinking about it now, I probably should have started with all of the data in the request, like just absolutely mirror that original request originally. And then stripped bits and pieces out. That may have been a better idea. So, please, sweet Lord, baby Jesus, give me some data. Not found again. That's really frustrating. That's really frustrating. Because I have no idea why. I really have no idea why that's not working. So what I'm going to do, so ranges name, floor, ceiling, TZ. Name, floor, ceiling, TZ. So name's got a capital M, N. We're going to change that to lowercase. Hang on a minute. So we've got ranges. So aside from name, that is the same, but we don't have type. Maybe because they're all const. It doesn't like that. All right, so maybe that's it. So we'll just fuck that off. I wish I had checked that earlier. I'll start the server again. I bet you it works now. I can always guarantee it. Go .NET API, beauty. Start her up. We've attached. Trigger that shit again. We have data. Oh, we have data. So peak watts per kilogram. And it looks like we have everything that we want. Cool. Results. That's the array of various stuff. I mean, it's hard to read in this format, and it's not going to let me reformat it without some farting around, so I'm going to skip that completely. But that looks to be pretty much what we wanted. Thank God. So how long did that take? 46 minutes plus however long I've spent on it today already. Okay. Let's go back to the debugger. So 11614. So we've got 11,500 characters in this first request. So what I want to do now is make some changes. So peak watts per kilogram request. Let's see, we've got references. I want to see what happens if I remove this range last year, because like all I want is actually the best ever. So we'll go into this, .NET Run. All right, go back up, we'll attach, go back, go forwards, and we'll sit tight until this triggers. We got data back, awesome. I'll turn that off. And so we have so it's practically the same. Oh, it could actually have more data in there, but that won't show me everything. It's annoying. But it seems to be pretty much the same. Yeah, it looked practically the same. All right, so that's how you reverse engineer shit. You just figure out where it's going, see if you can mimic the request, and then figure out if you can make changes. So there's one more thing I want to try before we move on. And that is I just want to send it an empty array for ranges and just to see if it is the same, like does it work? Because the thing is, like, all the data that I've got in the account is old data from a writer that's working on Cycling Connect. And so there's no, I don't have anything up to date. I don't know how this is going to work for, modern people, people that are doing it on the go. So did I restart? I hope so. Go back, go forwards, go back to the service, and we'll wait. So let's just have a request here. Parameters. So we've got user IDs all time, options 3, ranges. So we don't have any ranges in there. So let's have a look. Fuck me, it's worked. I think it's actually worked. I'm gonna get rid of all these annoying things. Get rid of that first one and that last one. Go format document. Here we go. So results, we've got an array, one object, two objects. I don't know what the difference is between these. 11.5, 2.7. They look to be pretty much the same. It's a metadata, which we might get in a sec. That seems like it could be useful. Cool. So that worked. That's a good outcome. Let's make a little note. Other array can be this range last year. Cool. Doesn't require data. No idea what this is. All right. Okay, so there's some notes for me to probably forget that I wrote. We'll go back to the service and I'm going to comment that, bring this guy back in, hit save, and then bar stuff is going to be equal to response.data. Bar a is equal to 1, because I want to put a breakpoint in there. So save it, can that. So we know we're getting data back. We just want to transform that now into that response class. All right, she's up. We debug, and then I will go to the browser. We'll go back. We'll go forward. And if we get an exception, that's not ideal, but hopefully I named it all correctly. All right. Oh, stuff is equal to null. That's shit. So we did get an exception. Cannot create an instance of an interface. So what I've got to do here is I've got to go back to the response. We've got to change that from an iList to a list. You can return an iList, but you can't create an iList because it's an interface. Now, in the actual response, these peak, they have a lowercase p. I'm fairly confident that it's going to just work. Fairly confident. All right, we're back. We'll attach. We're back. We go forward. We wait. Now I've obviously fucked something up because you could see that this was going a bit spastic, and you might have noticed that this is going off the charts, but that's a problem for later. So we can see stuff this time is not null, it is actually data. We've got results. Oh baby. Woo! Oh my god. There it is. There it is. All of that sweet, sweet data. So let's have a look at that peak 10-minute shit. .952381. So that's the correct data. All right. The thing is, like, it stands to reason that we're getting two things back here, right? The first one is called best ever. The second seems to be called series, which is good, but we don't know which one is which in this list. It's probably the case that it's in the same order, but we can't be sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a name. Response. Now, what was it? Data profile.js. Whatever. This is my last run. And then I'll end the video because it's fucking long. It's so long. Oh my god, it's an hour. Alright, so we debug. I think it's actually taken me less time to do it now that I'm doing it because I have to speak my way through it as compared to having to do it with just me. So I don't know what's going on here. It's fucking losing its mind. I fucked something up. So the data's come back again. Best ever. And series. So that, I consider that to be a win. I'll probably need to get some extra data out of it, right? Because if you consider this, we've got their peak data, but then the metadata is also kind of interesting. So we've got peak 5 seconds, activity ID, etc. We're not really interested in that, but what we probably are interested in is the timestamp, because if I grab that, I'll go RTS equals new date. You can see that's the 8th of July 2015. These, and then that one is on a different ride. And so we probably want to plot that on a graph of some kind. Yeah, but look, anyway, I'm going to wrap it up now because it's really long already. I hope this makes sense. It's been a really long video, but it's basically just keep firing off requests until you figure out what works. And then create a class so that using the data sent back is manageable. Whoa, I need a break.